Today we are going to cover the routers.
Sir, one question before you start the session.
Yeah,
Is router used only for single page application or it can be used with any application?
I mean router is used to navigate through the components. So I mean single page application means all the pages will be loaded in one go.
And all the page will be stored in the client machine.
No, pages are on the server.
Yes, pages are on
I
the
mean
server,
a
but
single
all
yeah single page application means all the pages are on your are downloaded in your client in your browser, and then you can like navigate through those pages.
okay. Is it something like toggling between different pages?
Toggling, in case of toggling, I mean there is only one page, like, and there are two components and you are toggling between them. I mean you are displaying one component and then like not displaying other, and then you are doing it vice versa.
Means in routing at server, there are different pages. They get loaded at once.
In all, I mean you can load the pages asynchronously also.
Yes, sir.
I mean
Okay, sir.
routing
Kamal, we
means,
will ask.
okay, routing means you are like mapping the components to the URL.
Yes. Okay, sir. We will ask a lot more questions because we are not very we
Okay,
are not understood very well.
okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll start with creating a directory. And we'll move to the directory session, and I will be copying some template code, and there is not a lot of code inside that template, but and I will explain what is it. I did it because I didn't want to like waste time in like copying from the internet and then showing you. Okay, so I have two files. So index in the index.html there is nothing. I have just there is a simple HTML page. Inside that there is a div with the ID app, and there are two CDNs. This one is related to view. This one we will use to like create the view instance, and this one we are going to use for the to create the router instance. So, and we are just linking this page to the app.js. And inside the app.js, it there is not a lot of code inside here also. So you can see this is the route. It's actually a list. So inside this routes, we will create a variable routes, and inside that we will create we will define what are the we will define all our routes. And here we are creating a router instance, and here we are creating a view instance. I don't think there is a lot to explain here. So we'll start with the index.html. So inside the index.html, so the two components are very important in the view router. The first one is a router link, and second one is router view. So router link. So what the router link does, it will inside the router link will create a anchor tag with which we will bind a a route. I'll demonstrate when I will like create a route. But for now, you just understand that router link will render a anchor tag to which we will bind a route. And let's create two router links. Let's wrap this inside a div. And the second component which is important is router view. So what is router view? Router view is the place where the components will be rendered. So these are the two very important components which we are using from the router library. And now we will create routes. So let's first create a list of routes which we are going to let's first create the components. Let's create a component const home, and this component will display when the page when our application will load. I mean, this is the landing page of our application. So we create a object home, and this we will use as a component. Template option, and inside the template option we will just say welcome to the live session. So this is a simple component home, and we will create one more component so that I could demonstrate how to like navigate through the components using the router. Const, let's say student, and then template. Let's copy this. Control V. Page. So right now we have created two components, and what we will do now, we will map these components to some route. And in the routes variable, we are going to store those routes. So this is a array, and inside the array I will create two routes. Okay, I mean we will give the options which are required to create a route. So the first option we need to give is path, and we will just simply call it slash for the home, and we also need to give the component to which we want to map this path. Let's map this to the home, and then I will create another path. I will create another instance. I will create another object, and inside this I will just provide path, and I'll call it slash student. Okay, and then I will give the component to which we want to map this path. Component and student. So routes is a list in which we are providing the object, and each object specifies the route, like and it specifies the route, and the path option provides what will be the path of that route, and the component option will specify which component we want to map to this path. And the similar thing is here. And after that what we need to do, when we are creating a view router inside the constructor, we need to give the name of the list of the routes. Okay, you can copy and paste this list here, and you can simply paste it here, but I did it so that the clone I mean the code should look clean. You can simply copy this and paste it here, no problem. And so these are the things. And now I will create the view instance. So inside the view instance, we first need to specify the L option. L option just says, so to which on which element I will have to, I mean the view instance has to be mounted. So I will be mounted this view instance to the app, to the element with the ID app. Okay, and then you need to pass the router here. Okay, so there are few steps to create a instance which has the router, I mean with the enabled router. So the first thing, you need to have the components, and once you have component, you create the list of routes. So inside the routes, a list of routes. Each element of the list should be an object, and that object will have few options. The path in, and the path option specifies what will be the path, and the component instance and the component option will specify which component we want to map to that path. And the similar thing is here. And once you have the list, you just pass this to the router constructor, and then after that, once you create the router instance, you pass it to the app. And after that, what you will do inside the what I said in the beginning, that router the router link component, the two prop of the router link component will specify, I mean when you will click what I said, that the router link will render a anchor tag. So once you click on that anchor tag, to which path it should redirect. Once I will run this application, you will understand everything. And then to home and student. and the content of the component, I mean the template of the component will be rendered inside the router view. So let's run this application. So you can see, am I is my screen visible? I mean, are you guys able to see this content?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So you can see once I click on the student, it will say student page, and if I will click on the home, it will say the welcome to the live session. So what happened? I will explain the template again. I mean the div, the app div. I'll explain. So the router link will render a anchor link, a anchor tag, and two prop will specify which path it should. Once I will click on that anchor link, anchor tag, to which path it should redirect, and you can see it from. Let's do one thing. I'll copy this URL and open it in Chrome. So once you click on the student, you can see, you see in the URL, it says /student, and and inside the router view, it displays I mean, it renders the template of the student component. Is there any doubt till now? Because this is the initial setup.
Sir, the tag router link that you used inside HTML,
Yeah.
where it is defined, is it defined in Vue.js or is it
View,
a template?
view in
Okay.
Vue.js. I mean router view. It's in router view. If you are not using a router, then you will not be able to use this router link.
Okay, sir.
Okay. And a router view is like outlet for the for the like the content. So whatever, whatever component, the component will be displayed inside the router view. Okay. So let's do one more thing. Let's create a little bit more complex component. So what I will do, inside the student, I will create some more things. Like I will create a data. I'll create. I mean, I will define the data object. Return. So if you guys remember that inside the component, you cannot write the data property. You need to write a data property as a function, which will return the data. Return, let's say, student. No. Let's return is a object. Inside that there is a object called student. Let's say first name. Let's and then let's roll number. So this is the data, and I'll create one. I will create one computed property which will display the full name. Computed. full name, and it will return this dot student dot last name. This is the computed property, and this is the data. So now I will render all this. I mean, I will populate the template with this data. So here is the div, and I'll create h1 tag, which will display the first name. Okay. Student dot first name, and let and then I will create a paragraph, and inside that I will display h2 slash the full name, full name. So full name is a computed property, so we don't need to give specify the student here, because once you click I mean the full name will display the full name of the student. And then let's say in h3, sorry, h3 roll number student dot roll number. So let's rerun this. Okay. Let's check what happened. Full name is not defined. Why? So let's remove this for now.
Sir, case sensitive.
Okay. Full name. Let's keep it like this. Yeah. So you can see now we our student component has a lot more data. And one more thing I would like to show you. So once you create the router link, it will automatically assign a class to this router link, and you can style the router link using that class. And it's not super necessary to know, but it's very important. I mean, it's very helpful thing to know. Router link exact. Let's active class first. Active. Inside that active class, let's make the color red. So we are not creating any class for this router link. This class is being provided by the view router. So if I will now go back to this, I mean, let's rerun this application so that you could see, because we have already clicked both the links, so both the links are already red. But so if you will use the router link uh, exact active, then it will apply that style only on that link on which you are currently active. Like if I will click on the home, then it will make the home color red, and if I will click on the student, then it will make the student link red. So this way you will be able to know on which link I am on. So you are currently on the student. If I'll click on the home, then you are currently on the home, and the link associated with the home component is red. So it will make your application little bit more user friendly. So for now, we are just we are just associating the component to the route. So let's say I want to send some data through the route. If you remember the flask, what we used to do, we used to pass some data through the route. So the similar kind of thing you can also do in the view also. So let's say I want to pass some data in the student. Let's say I want to pass the ID. So the way you pass the data is like you uh, you do it using the colon. I mean, we say colon. So if you use this syntax, the ID will be passed to the route. Okay, so you don't do it here. You pass the data here, and when you are creating the route, you specify that I will be getting the ID through this route. So whatever number I will pass, it will be passed to this ID. Okay. For example, here I passed 1, so 1 will be stored in ID. Okay. So how I will, I mean, how can I access this ID inside the component? So inside this student component, what I will do, I will create a new H1. Let's make it H. Okay. Keep it as H1. I will say ID, and then inside that route dot. So this is the pointer to the route instance. So I mean it specifies then it the value of this route will be the route on which you are currently on. So this route is the student component is associated with the slash student route, this route. So you can access this ID using this syntax, route dot params, and then name of the parameter. Okay, let's rerun this. So you can see that I have successfully like received the ID. So if I will pass 2 here, a 3 here, the ID will be 3. So you are passing some data through the URL. Is it clear?
No, sir, please explain once again the colon ID part.
Okay. So this syntax we use to pass the dynamic segment of the URL. The dynamic segment means this will the ID. So whatever, I'll write a comment here. So let's say this URL means whatever the URL. Let's say google.com slash student student slash whatever you will pass here. Whatever you will pass here. Let's say you are passing 3, then this 3 will be stored in this variable ID. This is the parameter variable. Okay, and the way you receive this ID inside the component is you use the routes.params, and then you pass the name of the ID. Let's say I will change the name of ID to student ID. Student ID. Okay, so now I can receive this student ID using this route.params.student ID. Student ID. Student ID. So I will pass 4 here. You can say the ID is 4. So whatever the variable name here, you can receive this variable inside the component using route.params. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So now if I'll create one more component, then the whole application this file will become large, and it will be very hard to manage this file. So what I will do, I will create the component and I will import these components to this file so that it could be, so that it can be manageable. Now, right now, let's create, if I will create one more component and write this much of code, then this file will become very large and it will be very hard to manage.
So one doubt, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, so this you're using your rendering the HTML. It's running on some local, right? Local host 8000.
Yeah.
If you're running it in our just index.html, I don't think it will work on the URL, right? If we pass 3 in the URL, will it work?
Yeah, it should work. I
No,
have
sir,
not
it's not.
tried it. Huh?
It's not working here. I'm trying it right now.
So all other things are working.
Yes, sir. Everything is working, but I need to pass that path parameter instead of the code. So it's not lively served. It's not running on a server, right? So that's the problem.
Okay.
Will it work on Replit if we do this?
Yeah.
Replit is already hosted.
Yeah, it will work.
Okay.
So let's decompose this file in multiple files. So I'll create a. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's not stop this server. And now inside the live session, I will create a directory component, and I will like export all the components to this component folder. I'll keep all my components in this component folder. Let's go to the components and create two files. Touch to home.js and student.js. And I'll copy and paste those components in these files. So inside the component, inside the home.js, I will copy the component home and paste it inside the home.js, and this component I will copy and paste in the student, and I will remove these two components from here. I'm not doing anything new. I'm just rearranging my code. Now this code looks clean. So what I need to do, if you remember, you need to export in order to use it in another file. You need to export this component. Alt home and student.js inside it here. Alt student. So now I have exported these two files, and I will use this to, because I will need the component here. In order to use inside the component option, I need this component to be, I will import this component. Import home okay.
Hello, sir.
Yeah,
So, what happen if we don't provide ID after the student/ID?
I mean, I think it will.
It is compulsory or optional. The colon part.
Okay, I mean, I don't think it will display anything inside that component.
Oh,
It
okay,
will
sir.
fail silently. And one of the problem with the JavaScript is it fails silently. It doesn't show any error. I mean, if you will not provide any ID, it will just show nothing. Okay. The first thing I need to do is like type is equal to module here. To remember from the previous classes, if you are using it as module, then you need to provide the type attribute. Student, and it automatically does it. The VS Code does. I don't know why it's not working. It's checked now. Now, so now you can see that I can decompose my my file into multiple files, and I can export those components, and then after importing those components, I can use it here. So it will make our life much more easier. Okay, is there any question till now? I didn't.
Sir,
Yeah,
sir, please go to student.js.
yeah,
Here, a student is an object, and object takes key value pair,
yeah.
but data is not a key value
Data
pair.
is a method. So
Even
inside the
even in object, sir,
no,
even in
no, that
object we have to define function like
so yeah, you can write it like this:
data column.
data and then function. But you can write it like this also.
Okay, sir.
But it's easier to write.
Sir, is
I mean,
this
this
sorting
is the
included
syntax.
in
Yeah,
ES6?
yeah.
Sir,
It's available in ESA.
okay, sir.
So now, I mean, there are few more things to know. Like you can create the named route and all. I mean, this is not the. Oh, okay. So if you see this syntax, you can see that this, I mean, this part of the code is tightly coupled with the route. Like I will be able to use this component when I am using a route. So, but there are multiple ways to pass a data from parent to child. Like let's say if I will, let's say I want to use this component when I mean even if I am not using the route. So one way to do this is like you pass a props and call it ID, student ID. Now I have student ID, and I will pass the student ID. Now the student component is not tightly coupled with any route. It is just taking the value of the prop. Okay. So if I want to pass a data, I want to pass a data from the route, and I want that parameter to be passed as a prop. So there is a way to achieve this. So all you need to do is go to the router instance, and inside that you just pass props true. So the data of this parameter will be passed as a prop to the component. Okay. Okay. Working. So did you understand what I wanted to say? I didn't. I wanted the pass parameter, to be passed as a prop, not as a route.params, so that even if I am not using the router, I mean, I will be able to use this component, because you can from the parent to child, you can pass the data through the props. Is it clear? So the student ID is not being passed as a parameter now. It is being passed as a props to this component. So now what I will do, and one more thing I wanted to show. Okay, you can use a name to the path. Like if right now we are targeting this route from the path. If you see the index.html, what we are doing, we are passing a path, and then router is matching that path, and then rendering the associated component inside the router view. So, I mean, there is one, instead of passing the two prop, we can bind it to an object, and that will make our code, I mean, little bit cleaner. I'll write the code, then you will be able to understand. So let's pass a name option. Name, let's call it, what I'm saying, I can target this path using this name also. I'll go to the student, index.html. Now instead of passing the two is equal to here, I can pass a object. Name, student, and then params. What was this? Student ID, and student ID. I can pass anything here. Let's pass it 3. So what I did here, I'm not, and I'll have to bind this to prop to this object. So instead of passing the path directly, what I am doing, I am targeting that path with the name option, which I have written here. Okay. So there is two way to like target a path. You can target it using the name also. So uh, at that point of time, the parameter name was not given. Like if I was using the two props, what I used to do is student slash 1. So I don't know what I mean, this is the value of which parameter. But in this way, you are like writing the name of that parameter also, so it makes the like calling more verbose. Is it clear now? Any
No, sir.
question?
This part dot colon 2 is not much clear.
Which one?
Colon 2.
Colon 2. I mean,
Yeah.
colon you use to bind. If you remember, this is the shorthand for v bind. V bind. So what we are doing, we are binding this two prop to an object now. Okay, and what we are targeting the path using the name attribute. The name attribute we have written in I mean in the route. So name, I have given this path a name. This path a name, and the name is student. Okay, and I am using this name option to target this path. And in the first case, I am just using I am using the path directly. But what was the, I mean, what that was not the problem if you remember the name of the parameter. But if you don't remember the parameter, you don't know what is the name of that parameter and how to handle that parameter. You're just writing the value there. But here it's more verbose.
Ah,
okay, you are writing the name of the parameter also. So let's say you have to pass two parameters. So in that case, student ID, and let's say I'll write the course ID also. Course ID. Let's 4. I mean, it will complicate our thing in that, in this one also. I'll have to write the whole thing here. Course, and then colon, course ID, and then inside the student here, let's say I want to print the course ID also. Course ID. You can pass the multiple parameters inside the path, inside the route. Course ID. So now it will, okay, what happened? Will not show any error. I mean, let's remove this for now. We will discuss in, I mean, you can see it's not showing any error and we will get stuck here. I mean, you can pass the multiple parameters. For now, let's, uh, if we'll, yeah, I mean, if the time permit, we will come back to it. But for now, let's not discuss it. So the whole point of passing the I mean binding the two prop with the object is, it is more verbose. It is more verbose in the sense you know the parameter name here also, parameter name also. But if you will not use, if you use the path directly, you will just pass the value and you will not know. I mean, to which parameter I am passing this value. I mean, if someone will see this code, then he will not be able to understand. But in this case, it will, he will be able to understand that this this is I mean 3 is the value of the student ID. And there are few more things you can use. Like if I will write replace here. So if I will write replace here, the what will happen? Okay, one more thing I wanted to show before I will write the replace here. So if you go to the home and you go to the student, let's run this application again. The parameters. Yeah. So you can see if you will go to the student tab, then you will be able to go to the I mean you will be able to navigate back to that page using this browser's back button. But if you will use replace, this back button will be deactivated. So now let's say I will go to the student page and then I will go to the home page. Let's make the replace here. So let's go to the student page and back button is already activated. What's wrong with it? Yeah. So if you will go to the student and then what if you will click on the back button, you expect it to go to the home because we came to the student from the home. But if you click on the back button, it will go directly to this home page, this page. But if you will not use the replace, but if you will not use the replace here, and then you will go to student and then you will go back to the home. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now what I will do, uh, I will fetch the data from the API and populate this student data with the data which came from the API. Okay, this is the natural progression. So right now this data is like tightly coupled with this component. I want this data to come from an API. So as if you have seen the screencast, the mounted hook is the good place to use. I mean to fetch the data. So I'll use the mounted hook to fetch the data from the API, and the API I'm using is the API the gradebook API which we created in week 6 in Med 1. So I'll just show you how that API looks. So if I will go to the student.3 and then send a GET request. Let me rerun this. I just wanted to show you the format in which the data will come. So if I will make a request to this endpoint where the last segment represents the ID of the student of which you are like fetching the data. So it will provide you the student ID, roll number, first name, and last name. So you can use this data to populate the data inside the component. Okay, so you can use the fetch API fetch to fetch the data from the API. So I wanted to use the await keyword, so I will need to provide the async keyword before the mounted. so that I could use the await keyword. Okay. So I will write the raw data await, and then I will make a fetch request to this URL control to this URL, and then once the response comes, if at the firstly I will check whether the response was successful or not. Dot okay. If it's okay, okay means if the status code is between 200 and 300 or not. Then once the response is okay, what I will do, I will convert the body of the response into a JavaScript object, and then I will populate this student object with that data. Okay, if the raw data dot okay, it will like return if the response is between 200 and 300, the raw data dot okay value will be true, otherwise it will be false. Student data is equal to, if you remember from the previous class, the I mean the raw data dot JSON will give you a promise. So, and what await keyword does, it will wait till the promise resolves, and it will store the data, the resolved value inside the student data. This we discussed in the last session. Await raw data dot JSON. So what this line says, wait till this promise resolve, and once it resolves, store that resolved value inside the student data. And now once we have the student data, what we can do, we can replace that student data, uh, this student object from this student data. So what I will do, I will simply that this dot student is equal to, I'll just simply copy and paste this P, and first name I will replace with the student data first name, and then last name, roll number. Now before I mean after mounting this after mounting the component to the DOM, what it will do, it will send a fetch request to this URL, and then if the response is okay, I mean if it's in between 200 and 300, it will fetch it will like parse the body of the response and create a JSON, create a JavaScript object, and then we can use that JavaScript object to like reassign the value of the first name, last name, and roll number. So let's go back to the, so if you go back to the student, now you can see the name had changed. And if you go to this postman, then you can see the roll number, the name and the last name, all these things are coming from the API. So the roll number, first name and last name, these are all coming from the API. And if it's not okay, like else what I will do, alert could not fetch the data. Okay, let's check for a data which does not exist here. It's 404. So if I will change this to 1, then let's see how our app reacts. Yeah, it says that the could not fetch the data because the response was not between 200 and 300. Okay, so let's change it back to the 7. What happened now? Is there any question till now? I mean, this is how you fetch the data from the API and then use that data to populate your component. If you have any doubt, then you can ask. So I'll assume there is no doubt. So what I want to do now, so for now this student ID is like hard coded. So every time I will, even if I will change the URL, even if I will change the URL, the data will not change. The ID will change because this ID is dependent on, we are just displaying the ID passed through the route. But this data will not change because if, let's make it 10. This data will not change because we have hard coded this ID inside this URL. So can anybody tell how we can like pass this ID from this component? Like I want to make this dynamic so that if I will, whenever I will pass the ID here, it will fetch the data of the student with that ID.
Like a form where we could enter a number.
No, we are already passing the student ID from the route, right?
Oh, okay. Then
Yeah.
then we could extract that ID, convert it to an Indian, send a request. Then.
Yeah, we are passing this ID and like that ID is being passed as a props to this component. So we can use this student ID inside. So instead of writing 7, I can use that prop. So what I will do, I'll remove this, then use the student ID here. Okay, I'll have to specify this. Now when I will pass the data, I mean, in, so let's start with the 4. It will take little bit time maybe because it's, yeah, because now the data is being fetched from the server. So let's say now if I'll change the data here 7, okay, so the name has changed.
Sir, I think you misspelled this. That is why this error.
Okay. Yeah. If I will write 7 here now, so you can see the data is changing. If I will go back to home, student, then because we are passing uh, the ID here as 3, we have hard coded it as 3. So the 3 will be passed by default. But if I change this to 7, I mean this will change. The data will change. Okay, it is fetching the data from the server.
Sir, I have one question about that mounted.
Yeah.
Sir, so every time a page gets called in that student, that mounted async will get called, async mounted.
Can you repeat your question?
Sir, the mounted is usually called when the view instance is first, view object is first created, right? So every time
the view once, I mean, when the view instance is created, the created hook is being called. I mean, will be called.
okay, so every time we like a route to a new page, a new route instance will be created. Is that correct?
Every time we will route to the new route, the new route will be created. Is this what you are trying to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. But if one thing I will show you. So if you will go to the home, then new route instance will be created, and if you will go to the student, new student route will be created. I mean instance will be created. But if you will only change the value of this parameter, the parameter, the new instance will not be created.
Okay.
The previous component will be reused. Okay, because
Okay.
we are just changing that's why we need to, I mean I will have to like refresh in order to like I mean to change this data.
Okay.
I mean there is a way to like remount that component.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's why I was confused. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean I mean what else we can cover? So inside, so you can create the nested route also. The nested route, what I mean that right now, if you see the application, there is only one router view, right? And this acts as a outlet for the top level, the top level component. Like there is only one router view, but let's say I want to use another router view inside our component. Let's say we have a student, and a student has two kind of information in the student. Like let's say if this has, I mean the student has the profile and the student has the enrollment. and you want to display the student profile and the the student enrollment in a single router view, but you don't want to use this router view. You want to write that write that information inside this student component. Am I making sense? I'll so first what I want to say that there might be there might be the cases in which the component can have the router view. I mean the routes can be nested.
So inside the template, there'll be another route.
Yeah, there can be another route. There can be another template view, which temp and that template view can be changed using the route. Like you want to make the children of this component.
So for example, inside the template, there could be a link to go back to home.
Yeah. No, I'm not talking about the router link. I'm talking about the router view. Router view. What this router view does, it will render the component, the associated component. Right? If you click on the slash link, then it will render the template of that of the associated component here, right? And the similar thing will happen with this router link also. So but what I want this student has uh, this student to have the router view. Like let's say I want to display some information other than this information will be displayed every time this component will load. Okay, but I want some dynamic component based on the route inside this router. Okay, this part is dynamic. This these things will be rendered once the component loads. Like this link will be available in all the pages. Okay, but this part is dynamic. This part is changing based on the route. Okay, and the similar kind of behavior I want to create inside this student this student component. I this Once I will visit the slash student path, this these these contents will be displayed all the time, but I want this this part of the template to change based on based on some information. Like if I want to display the profile of the student, then this this information is fixed, but I will show the profile information here. And if I want to show the enrollments, then this information is still fixed, but this part will display the enrollments. Is the objective clear now?
So maybe you can demonstrate, then I think it will be clear.
Okay. Okay. So what I want to do, I inside this route, inside the route, inside this student, I want to create some children, and children is a list. and inside that I will make two children. The first children is the like profile. I will call it profile. Profile, and I will make two more components. And for now, let's write the value component. I'll create two components, and I'll create a profile component and will associate this component to this path, and I will make another children, that is path. Path you don't have to write this profile slash s profile and enrollment, and then associate this path to the component enrollment. And I will create two files here. First, file.js and enrollment. So inside the component, I have created two more enrollments and profile. And I want to use this component inside the student component. So on enroll, I'll just make a simple component. Template. F1. List of enrollment spelling is IENR double. Okay. And then export default enroll. Okay. And the similar thing I will do with the profile. I'll create a const profile template, and I will write h1 first slash h1, and what I will do, and then I'll have to, okay, in the app.js I'll have to import these two components. Import profile from dot component dot profile. And similarly I'll have to import enroll. Okay, component. So, and then now if I will component slash profile is not there.
I think you missed the .js in the import.
Yeah. For default, I missed the profile. Default. Now it should work. Yeah. So now if we'll go to the student, till now, I mean, it will display the information, but if you'll write the slash profile, it will display that this is the profile of the student with this values. Okay. I mean, this content is now dynamic and this content is fixed and this content is dynamic. I will profile other than what was the enrollment. Let's copy the name from there. Yeah, list of enrollments. So you are nesting the route now. So you created a top level route, and then inside that route, you can make the, you can make the content dynamic.
So these are children components of the
Yeah.
main group, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And one more thing I will show. I mean, let's say if I'll go to the student here, 3, I mean, here nothing will be displayed, right? Because
Yeah, it's not like the show attribute, right?
yeah,
It's not in the DOM, but only when you go to the path, it gets displayed.
yes.
Okay.
But if you want, you can display some default content there. Like let's say every time someone will go to the student slash 3, along with this information, I want to display the profile of that also. Like if right now, if I'll write profile, it will display the profile information also, but here it's not showing anything. And you, I mean, I mean, there is something here which is dynamic, but once I mean, the when this page loads for the first time, let's say you want to display the profile here, or let's say you want to display the I mean, by default you want to display some content here, so there is a way you can, like, uh, you can attach this kind of behavior. So what you have to do, you just have to write a new path here, path, and don't pass anything. It's an empty string, and associate a component with this. Let's say I want to profile. So what it will do by default inside this this router view, the profile component will be displayed, will be rendered. Okay, you use the empty string to like load the component by default. So uh, if even if you will not pass the profile here, this will be displayed. Okay, by default in the router view, the like template of the profile will be displayed. So if you'll go to the profile also, it will display the same thing. Enrollments. enrollment. You'll go to the enrollment, the list of enrollments will be displayed. If you'll go to the profile, whatever the template is will be rendered. But if you will not provide anything here inside the, I mean, this segment of the URL, if you will not provide this segment of URL, by default, it will display the profile.
Then what is the use of putting it in the child component? I mean,
this,
is it so? If there was already, if this was in the main path, then the enrollment or the profile would have come below it, right?
Yeah.
Because it would have been, it would already been on the DOM, and then only this. Okay, so this is still dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is still dynamic. When you can like render that child component using that slash.
Okay.
It's still dynamic. If you'll change the slash enrollment, this will change.
Yeah. Okay. Understood.
So, and one more thing I wanted to show, let's say you are like writing, if you will create one, let's create one more path, and the star path. Star path is also important. It will match, the star path will match all the paths. Like if you'll write the slash path, it will match only when you are like visiting the path with slash, I mean slash path. And this will be matched when you will pass the path like this. I mean, if you'll visit the route with the path like this. Okay, but if you'll pass the path, okay. If you'll write the star, it will match everything. Like this will also be matched, this will also be matched.
So whatever you put inside this component, whatever component you put inside this, it'll be displayed in everything.
Yeah, in not in everything. I mean, if there is no match, it will be matched. I mean, if there is a match, then I mean this component, I mean this path will override this star. But if it will not match any if it will not match any like path, it will display the component. I'll demonstrate it. Okay.
Okay, if there's a path which is not available, then this path will be rendered.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can put 404 errors and all those things there.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
This is exactly, I mean, if you remember from the class, if you'll make a mistake in the URL, it will display the 404. So you can simulate that kind of behavior using this star path. Well, let me create one more path component. JS. And inside that error.js, I'll just create const error template, and let's make it 404 h1. And export this. Export default error, and let's import it inside the app.js. Error.js, and use this component if no path will match. Component error. So let me make a mistake here. So student, instead of student, let's write it course. So you see, source 404. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Sir, what if you put this part inside the children of the main part?
Yeah, then if there will be no component, like right now there is two. I mean, this profile and enrollment will compose the some segment of the of the URL.
Okay.
Like also student 7 class enrollment. Okay, what I'm saying, this enrollment is coming because of this part. This part.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you'll put this inside this children, then if there will be no profile, if you'll write anything except the profile and enrollment, it will show error at that portion maybe. I mean, let
Okay.
me try. Yeah,
Makes sense.
star component, and let's see error. Okay, so enrollment, other than enrollment, I'll just write course here. So it says 404 here. Yeah, and one more thing I wanted to let you know. So you can write a base path here. Like base path means when your application will be loaded for the first time, that component will be rendered inside the router view. Like it's the entry point of the application. Like if you will write the base slash, so what will happen, it will go to the associated it will render the associated components template inside this router view, the first router view, this inside this router view. So I'll repeat myself again. So what this base says that this, I mean, the path, the component associated with this path. So whatever the path you will provide here, the component associated with this path will be the default for the application's top level router view. Maybe I'll just, yeah, it was, and by default the entry is slash, I guess. I mean, whenever you if you will load your application first time, you want something to be displayed inside the router view, right, for the first time. So you write the path, I mean, you specify that component using this base option. That's what I want to say. And I have covered all the things that I wanted to cover. Named component I have already covered. The nested routes already covered. So I guess I have covered all the things that I wanted to cover in this session. So if you guys have any question, you can ask.
Sir,
Yeah.
can we achieve these types of routing with the help of normal JavaScript like Windows.history object? We can then
Yeah.
slice them.
Yes, yes. You can use the history API to like it actually this the view is using the history API, the browser's history API. So whenever you are whenever you are clicking on this in this link, what it is doing, it is pushing the URL into the history stack. That's why we are able to navigate through this through the multiple routes. So one of the examples I showed that when I was using the replace keyword there inside the router link, if I'll write the replace here, it we were not able to go back. We were not able to go back, right? And that is because if you use the replace, it will replace the it will not push that route inside the browser's history.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, it will just replace the top whatever route is on the top of that stack, browser's history stack.
One more thing, sir. Suppose Windows.history is having different. Sorry, when please go to browser.
Where?
Yeah, browser.
Yeah,
Yes. Here, after hash symbol, we have student slash
yeah,
3.
yeah,
And using window.history, we can take a student slash 3,
yeah,
and we can display respective data accordingly.
yes.
So is this possible with the help of normal JavaScript?
I have not tried, but I mean these are the libraries, so these are written in JavaScript. So I mean it is possible. That's why we are having this kind of functionality. These are written in JavaScript. So basically, if you will use the vanilla JavaScript, then you will be creating a I mean you will creating this library by yourself, and it's not library; it's a framework. So you'll be creating this framework by yourself. So there is no like point of reinventing the wheel.
Sir, one more thing. As courses passes, we have lots of syntax. Do we have to remember all those things?
No, no, no. You don't need to remember. I mean, the view documentation is enough. But if you'll practice enough, you will. I mean, you will at least you will know which. I mean, what should I use for this purpose? I mean, the practicing will have this benefit. But I would recommend you guys to practice.
And sir, in our course, we are using Vue 2.0 or 3.0.
Yeah, 2.0.
2.0, but here router.vue or whatever page you have opened,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is showing Vue 3.x.
yeah. View router 3. Yeah,
Oh, router
the
is
view router
different.
3. Yeah. Yeah, it's a first party library. I mean, third party library, but it's like supported by the Vue.
Okay, sir. That's
And
why you
it's
have included Vue router, a content for
Yeah,
Vue router also.
yeah. I'll have to like write the CDN for the router also. You can see here I have.
Yes.
It's not inside this view. So this view will be used to create the application instance, view application instance, and this router, view router, will be used for creating the view router instance. Anything else?
Yeah, I have a few questions. Can I ask?
Yeah.
Yeah. So suppose we are doing routing,
Yeah.
and we have the 10 router. I have a 10 bases, so I created the 10 router.
Yeah.
So whatever we are seeing that it's very it's not going the server side. It's because every content is on the client side, so it's fast
Yeah.
convert one router.
Yes.
What will happen that if all the 10 pages is coming from the server side? For
Yeah.
example, earlier our that suppose the 10 pages was there, 10 tab is there, so
Yeah, I
every
understand. What you are trying to say that let's say the application is very large and there are multiple routes like 10 and 20 routes. So it will
yes,
load all the pages from the server. So it will take I mean a lot of time to load this application.
yes. And one more question
Yeah.
is that even suppose it's at the same time, suppose one person is suppose only the first page is opening, it is
Yeah.
certainly possible after first page opening they will close this. So
Huh.
what's happened in the earlier whenever the normal the Flask or the Jinja was there, so whatever the page I was clicking, it was rendering that moment from the server.
Yeah.
So if it's render everything, all content for the 10 router at the same time the moment user is opening, or it's what
Yeah.
type?
For now it is loading all the things. I'll show you. I mean, it loads all the like pages from the server inside the browser
So
at once. Yeah.
it is kind of the unnecessary data using, no, for
Yeah.
every.
And there is a way to like handle this kind of things. Async I mean lazy loading route. You can read this. I mean this what you say this section of this documentation lazy loading. It's not very hard to achieve it. So all you
Okay.
have to do you go to the routes and instead of like passing the name of the component you just export you right now what you are doing you are exporting here exporting the importing mm, the component from this from the enrollment directory here and then you are directly using this component here, right? So what you can do you can use the dynamic export. So it will not load when I mean it will this is called the lazy loading. It will not how do I say I mean it will not load instantly.
Okay, so it will
Yeah,
load this,
it is kind of asynchronous loading.
but it will load in the background.
Yeah.
So
No,
so that's the,
but it will load only when you will click on that route. It will
so
load and yeah, and if you'll and it will cache that component also.
so how will that route will know that particular route is going to load from the server, because here I'm not doing anything from that side.
No,
I'm
when you will click and at that point of time it will load.
okay. So every route I will particularly mention that server side
And
address in the
this
background.
this kind of thing we will discuss in one of the live sessions.
Okay.
So yeah, and this is called what we are doing. We are bundling all our components in one single bundle right now. So it will load everything. So
Okay.
what we can do, we can create multiple bundles and we will load the bundle according to our need. Did you understand? What you are doing right now? You are like you are bundling all your components in one bundle right now, but there is a way in which you can create multiple bundles and each bundle will have different components and those components will be load when required.
Okay. Then it can be achieved.
Yeah.
Okay. So we will study this furthermore also.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thanks.
Sir.
Yeah.
Okay. That Abdo 1 peak 6, you are taking some what you are fetching that URL, right? Data from that that URL
Yeah.
from add one part. So can you post it in the replit, or can you give the link of that code in somewhere in the Discourse at least?
Okay, student dot here.
Yes, yes,
This
sir.
one. Okay, I'll
Yes.
post it. I'll post everything on the Replit.
Okay, so when can I get it, sir? After some time?
Yeah, after some time.
Okay, sir. Yes. Thanks.
But there will be one problem here actually, because I mean this server is the Flask server is Flask API is hosted on my local machine, so this will change. The base URL will change.
Yes, sir. We can change that.
Yeah. So you can change it according to your like your API.
Yes, sir. And you can give us the code in Replit. From there we can download and host it in our local also. Then it will remain the same.
Sir, can we use environment variable to change that
Yeah,
the
yeah.
URL?
Yes. I mean .env file, you can make the .env file and store it as a safe variable.
So if you can show me, sir, that.
Let me first able to see where the list. What were you saying? Hello?
No, sir, I was just saying that can you show me how to do that? Because I was trying to do that and I had some error in parsing. So the JS file would not parse the variable correctly.
Yeah, I know it in Python, but I'm not sure in the JS. So maybe you can post it in on the discourse and then.
Okay, sir.
So what you want to do is take this URL from an environmental variable, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, let's discuss in Discourse. I'll check it.
I have not done this in the JS. I have done it in the Python. Anything else?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So should we close the session then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank
Sir,
you.
can we do some? Sir,
Yeah.
I have a question in practice assignment week 6. Are we open for that?
Yeah, you can ask.
Okay, so practice assignment, can you open that? Week 6.
Okay. So if you, I mean, if you don't mind, you can post it on Discord. If
Okay.
it's not the issue. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, then let's do it later. It's already time. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
So can you share the code today itself?
Yeah,
So we
yeah,
could,
I can. I have to go to home. I am
okay.
so so I will be able to share this code after 2 or 3 hours.
Okay, sir. Okay. Yes. Thank you.